I was dealing with bed bugs that week, and it was very hard for me to hunt when I had thousands of bites all over me. It was just a
Did you
miserable.
rent an Airbnb or was it a hotel?
Well, we were at Airbnb, and it's hard to explain, but like I've slept in some bad places in the Marine Corps, a lot of insects, a lot of stuff, and like I told Zach that the second morning, the first morning because we got out there late. I was only in bed for like 2 hours before we got up and went hunted, so I only had a couple bites, and I was like, oh, it might have been something out here, whatever. But then like the second night, we got in bed early, and I woke up like at 4. But like throughout the night, I felt stuff crawling on me, and I just kind of brushed it off. I was like, oh, it's probably beetles or something that got in here. So I just brushed it off and went back to sleep. And I'd wake up again, just brush, felt stuff crawling on me, and it wasn't any big deal. But then when I got up, man, I was like, man, what the hell? I have been eaten alive. And I had thousands of bites. So it was a really hard week for me to concentrate and hunt. Zach ended up killing a deer the last morning that we were there hunting public. And like, it was awesome, because we had hunted hard, and he ended up finding some real good success. And I was happy for Zach. And then came back to West Virginia and hunted rut. And then getting closer to Christmas, because Fuzz lives down that way, and he had been running some cameras for us, and we just sharing information, and got a picture of a big buck, and so it's Christmas. I got a picture Christmas Eve.
I love this part.
So Christmas morning we wake up, and we're early risers at our house every day, but like Christmas, Brody, he still loves Christmas, and we love watching him, and so we're sitting there. So we wake up early, we're done opening gifts, we eat our coffee cake, drink our hot cocoa, coffee, whatever, we're done, and it's like 9:30, and I looked at Stacy, and I said, hey, I'm thinking about bouncing down to Kentucky. And she was like, okay, yeah, it's cool. She said, when you think about leaving? And I was like, well, I'm thinking about leaving right now. I was like, we're done opening gifts, everything's cool, it's over with. And she said, you know what? He said, I don't ever say anything to you and about hunting and doing your thing. She said, but you bounce to Kentucky, you just keep on bouncing. And I said, well, you put it that way, I better stick around for dinner. You hear me? So I stuck around. I stuck around the whole Christmas day, and I'm smothering. And didn't get a picture of him Christmas Day, which no big deal. So Monday, I ended up going into work, and I was like, I'm gonna go on in, get all my stuff took care of. Got a picture of him at like 3:00 in the afternoon. I was like, God, what a gag. I was like, hell with it. I'm going home and I'm leaving. But at the time, our interns, Harry and Alex, we'd pretty much told them go enjoy their time with their families Christmas. They didn't have to worry about filming anymore. Harry was all the way up in New York. Alex had gone back to work. So I'm scrambling for a cameraman. Zach couldn't go because he hadn't killed a deer here. He was still on deer, so he was self-filming here. Jay was in Ohio trying to fill his tag self-filming. I talked to a buddy of mine, Kenny Davis, at Whitetail Frenzy to see if one of his guys was available. Talked to Jared Schaefer, but he had a tag. He was still chasing. Jared called one of their cameramen there at Tethered. He was in New York with his family. It just didn't work out. I'd called Hagan, our intern from 2 years ago. He lives in Kentucky. He couldn't go, and I was like, I'm going. I've self-filmed before, but I've not self-filmed. my self-filming in the past has been like one frame and just hit record, and whatever happens in that frame, that's what you get.
Like my self-filming.
Yeah. So I really committed to it, and I said, you know what, I'm going to go down here, and I said, I'm going to film how you're supposed to so we can make a video, whatever happens. And so got down there, and perfect weather. It was at the tail end of that big cold front that was before Christmas, so it was still in the 20s. There was snow on the ground, and got in this area. The wind was going to be perfect. It was a south wind, and got in this area, and it's old mine reclamation. So it's kind of like I'm right back at home, just without all the elevation. There's still elevation differences, but it's really easy elevation. So get in there first evening, and I had some does come through. They were browsing, and a really nice 8-point. And like, I'm sitting there contemplating shooting this deer.
Yeah,
I sent you a picture.
You did, yeah. And I said shoot.
Yeah. And I'm like, am I fouling up when I know that this bigger deer's in the area? But I know I'm down there for the whole week. Like, I've already told myself, like, I'm going to hunt. The only thing I knew, I probably needed to be back New Year's Eve. But that whole night, like, I'm talking about how, well, I'm not talking, I'm talking to myself. When you're by yourself hunting, you do a lot of that. And so I get back to the hotel, and I'm like, man, I fouled up. I should have went ahead and shot at that deer. I don't know if I'd have killed him or not, or whatever, but I should have went ahead and took the opportunity. And I'm looking at the weather, and the weather is getting warmer, and the wind's getting higher. So the next day, I wake up, and I was wore out, so I slept in. I didn't get up. I got up early and was getting ready. And I was like, man, I'm not in no rush. I'm going to lay down, and I'm going to get up here in a couple hours because I'm tired. Because 6-hour drive. I hunted in that cold, and the cold just zapped me that day before. So I start heading there. It's daylight. It's 7:30. And I'm heading down there to hunt again. And I'm in the same set. I'm in the same tree. I picked out a decent tree. Good cover, good place for camera arm, everything. The wind's blowing 25. Whew. And, it's just whipping me around the tree all day. It's like 3:30. I haven't seen a deer. And like, I'm messaging with Fuzz. And I'm like, dude, this wind is for the birds. I would have never sat here this long. I'd been in the stand since 7:45, something like that. I was like, if I was back home, because the deer here in the mountains, when the wind's blowing, they typically lay down. They're not up and moving. And he was like, dude, they're used to the wind down here. He said, just hunt. So I got it in my head that I really don't have nothing to go to. I'm going to go back to a hotel room. I might as well just sit here till dark. And lo and behold, I had just got done doing an interview, self-filming. I had the big camera pointing at me. And I don't know, the sun, I really can't remember whether the sun hit him and I saw his horns, but I looked like 45 yards from me in this thicket. And I was like, holy bejesus. Oh. So, I'm trying to get the camera turned around. And that was first and foremost. Like, I never grabbed my bow, nothing. Like, I wanted to get the camera on him. And it took that deer, that deer was so spooked. The wind was blowing, good wind, but I think it was swirling. And, dude, there was probably 2 or 3 times that I thought that deer was bugging out on me. Like, he completely jumped and like bound twice and then would stop. And I was like, what's he doing? I mean, and he was continuously throwing his nose up in the air. And you could see it in the video. You know, it took him 45 minutes to come 25 yards. And then he came into a shooting lane and then ended up thumping him too. It collapsed his lungs. But like that deer was so on edge the whole way in, and there's no chance of him smelling me because I mean the wind's blowing 25 mile an hour in my face, and the deer is at my 1 o'clock, and ended up killing that deer, and it probably my biggest deer score wise to date. And just a great self film.
He's a freaking giant.
Yeah.